Okay, could you just confirm if my screen is actually showing now?
Yes, we can see your screen, Noma. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Kudzai and to Kurudzira for this incredible 3 sessions that we have had in the past few weeks in terms of securing your dream job. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to use my experience and my career journey to be able to share with all the participants that are there today on how to make the most of any opportunity. I think for me, what has been absolutely inspiring and all in light with what Kurudzira stands for, which is to inspire, motivate, how much learning I got from the very first session when Lorraine took us through the LinkedIn profile. And I thought that after so many years of working and over 20 years of working in corporate, there is nothing that I could probably learn more, but I found that there was a lot that I learned from Lorraine's presentation. And moving on to Hard Life's presentation on a winning CV, I found that so inspiring. And I had my CV right next to me, and I was going through it and literally almost marking it. He was giving through the highlights of the do's and don'ts of what to include in a winning CV. I did miss Rejoice the Coach session. I look forward to listening to that via YouTube. So here's the thing. Now that you know, I think as a proactive employee, you have gone through all these sessions of putting everything out on LinkedIn, having a great CV, going through for that interview where you actually get to ace the interview, and that offer letter then comes your way. The journey doesn't stop, does it? Hi, Sharon. Let's continue. So I understand that the internet connection is rather unstable. So we probably are having one of those scenarios where the connection is unstable. If someone could just write in the chat box if you are able to hear me, so I'm able to continue.
We can hear you, Noma. You can carry on.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Kudzai. So now that you've actually gone through all the sessions and you've gotten that offer letter, you know, that's when the journey literally starts. Because as much as you can breathe a sigh of relief and say that I've gotten my dream job, the question becomes, then what? So how do you make the most of your opportunity? So I'm going to share with you in my presentation some of the nuggets that I've gained through my years of working in the corporate sector that have made me be able to make the most of any opportunity that I've been able to get. But first of all, I'll take you through what my career journey has been like, share with you my 10-point plan, and I'm calling it the Noma 10-point plan of making the most of the opportunity, and cap it all with sharing with you what obstacles you're likely to encounter during when you've secured that particular opportunity, and how to be able to overcome those obstacles. And hopefully we can have enough time for a Q&A at the end. So a mantra that I live on literally, is based on the movie Dead Poets Society, and it's Carpe Diem. And I wanted to share this with you because I felt that it was absolutely opportune for this session that we're having today. And the lecturer, when he's talking to the boys that he's lecturing at the high school that he's a teacher at, he says to the boys, and I've added and girls, is Seize the days. Seize the day, boys and girls. Make your lives extraordinary. I've lived by this mantra because once you put your foot into accepting that offer letter, the most important thing is to seize the day, because it's the journey that you then get onto that make your lives extraordinary. So, my journey started off, and I think Kuzai did share this right at the beginning when we did the introduction, when we were at university and we found ourselves in a French class, and we were kind of like getting 100% in that French class. And we realized that, you know what, we've got this great opportunity to be at this brilliant institute of learning. And in those years, and this might tell you our ages as well while we're at it, the University of Zimbabwe was the only university in the country then. And we realized that we had to make the most of our opportunity being at the University of Zimbabwe. And instead of being in in a learning where we were acing and getting 100% and learning something that we had already learned when we were at O level, what else could we do? And we found ourselves in the economics class. And as we made the most of our opportunity in the economics class, this led to our graduation and the start of our careers. And because I did share about what his career was going to be, but I wasn't clear about what my career was going to be. So I went back home to Bulawayo, and I was sitting around until my mom then told me that, you know what, I did not pay for you to go to university to be sitting at home. So if it means that you have to go and teach, you better go and teach. So I used my dad's connections to be able to go and look for a job. But as I was doing that, a colleague said to me, why don't we speak to our friend? I think he might have something for you. We gave the friend a call, and one thing led to another. And guess what? He says, when do you want to start? And me being myself, and because I wasn't too sure of what I wanted to do, I then said that I will start next week. And his response to me is something that has stayed with me for over 20 years. He said, you are not serious. Therefore, you do not want a job. So I changed my answer immediately, and I said, I will start tomorrow. And he said, see you at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So off I went to this company in the industrial areas, and I was doing some research for the company for a few months. And as I was doing that, an opportunity came through to do internal sales. And while I was doing internal sales, I put my hand up and I said, I would like to do that job because it gave me an opportunity, not only to be a permanent employee and all the perks that come with a job, but also an opportunity for me to be able to learn more about the business. And I decided to take up the job, even though it was a job that was not for a university graduate. That was not even was on my radar. So I took up that offer, and I put myself into the whole journey of doing internal sales, learning about my customers, and giving the most amazing customer service to all the walk-in customers, the telesales customers, that they all knew me by name. And I also worked on a project with folks that did not even have any formal education on continuous improvement, which led us to go into Harare to present this amazing project to the CEO, who then asked the question, who's that young girl who's presenting so well? And they say that her name is Noma, and she is in internal sales in our Bulawayo branch. So he then said that, how come she seems to be so good? And I think they told him that, she's just taken up this opportunity because she was looking for a job, which then led to them offering me a job as a regional sales rep. And it's not even a role that I'd applied for, but because in the very first job that they had given me, I decided that I was going to apply myself and give over 100% of everything that I was going to be doing to ensure that I not only learn, but I do my job extremely well. And a couple of years later, I then relocated to Harare. And while I was there, one thing that resonates with over the years is that the marketing director who was at the Harare office was away. And because as regional sales reps, we had to give input into his weekly report. I then called everyone together and I said that, you know what, folks, the marketing director is away and let's help put together his weekly report so that we can submit it on time. The rest of the other regional sales representatives were not very keen. So I took the initiative and the lead and I put everything together and I submitted it. So that when he came back to work, he found his report having been submitted to the CEO on time. And his question that he asked was that, who did this? And, I raised my hand and I said, you know what, since you were not around, I decided to do it. And he said, oh, okay, great. But guess what? We've got a role for a regional sales manager that has just come up and I'd like you to apply for it because you've shown great initiative. I applied for the job and I'm hoping that, I think that just looking back, I must have done pretty well at the interview session and I actually got the job. And suddenly my career was actually moving pretty well. And I was one of the youngest regional sales managers within the company. And it was a business to business company. And as my career then continued, and there was now beginning of my corporate, I was enjoying it, everything was fine. And in typical corporate life, you got ups and downs, the happy moments, the sad moments, the times when you doubt yourself. But in general, I realized that as long as I keep applying myself and doing the job to the best of my ability, having a learning mindset, I'll ensure that I'll be able to succeed. So an opportunity came through when I was doing my MBA, when I met a colleague who worked for a multinational, and he kept on prodding me and asking me to join the multinational. And I wasn't too keen on joining them because I was pretty happy where I was, until one day I just decided to give him my CV and apply for a role that had come up. And the next moment I was called for an interview. I went for that interview, one thing led to another, and I actually got the job. And therefore, I left my first role that I'd started off with after 9 years, and then I joined the multinational. Multinational was a business to consumer, and I was coming from a business to business environment. And I didn't know anything about fast moving consumer goods. So you can imagine what was going through my mind at that moment. Fear of the unknown. Would I be able to do it well? Beginning to doubt myself. Will I disappoint my colleague who had actually recommended that I apply for that job? So I went there and I decided that, you know what, the best thing that I can do to be able to do this role really well is to ask questions. And where I did not know, to be able to raise my hand and say that I did not know, and be able to have people around me who knew, to be able to share with me the information that they actually knew. And my career progressed within that multinational, which resulted in me having to work in Kenya, based in Mombasa, looking after what we called the coastal province then. And it was a cultural shock for me again as part of my journey, but pretty interesting for me as well because I kept on having a learning mindset. And I stayed there for another 3 years. And then I came back home to Zimbabwe in about 2011. And I was responsible for a new portfolio, looking after about 7 countries and having to grow this new portfolio. And because of the work that I'd done and being very results driven and showing that I'm actually capable of delivering great results for the company, I was eventually promoted and then eventually became the country manager for Zimbabwe, a role that I did for 4 years before I was then finally moved and then look after a multi-country region, which included countries like Uganda and Ethiopia and Eritrea. And that I was in my corporate life before I decided that it is time for me to press pause and smell the rose, take a look at what I want to do as the next steps, because I'd spent about 16 years in this particular company, in this multinational, and I felt that it was time for change for me and do something that is different. Which brings into where my current reality right now is. I run my own business and I I'm enjoying the new challenge that I'm getting from running my own business, more so in this particular environment that we're in of there's COVID-19 happening, and every single day there's something new that I am learning within that, including learning at this particular session that we are in today. So, that has been my journey within the corporate life, and it's led me to come up with the, what I call my 10 points of how to make the most of an opportunity whenever you get it. Because I realized that in my plus 20 years of working in corporate, there's some things that continue to resonate very well with me, and that work well for me even today as I run my own business, and I continue to apply them to my business today. So, when I'm looking at making the most of the opportunity in terms of, where most of the participants are at today, whether you are applying for a new role and you're a new or you're a graduate about to finish your degree, or you are already in a particular role and you've been given that important offer letter, and or you're actually even running your own business. There's certain things that I believe would be worthwhile to be able to make the most of the opportunity and make your business succeed, or make you be able to climb that corporate ladder if you are in a working environment. So here's my 10-point plan. Number one, show up. Give more than 100%, because you are the one that is applied for the job. You are the one that actually decided to put your hand up and say, I am interested in this job. The offer letter has come through and has come your way. And that's not the time to relax. That's the time to actually dig in and giving more than 100% to every single thing that you will be doing. And as you start your journey, and as you start your opportunity that you'll be on, ask questions. If you tell yourself that, I don't know everything, you'll be surprised how many people around you within any organization that you're on will be willing to actually help you and give you a helping hand if you actually admit that you don't know. Please help me. Because asking questions will enable you to broaden your learning horizon, because the answers that you get from other people who are more experienced in the workplace will enable you able to learn and build your knowledge base as you make the most of that opportunity that you've been offered. An important aspect which some people within the workplace don't do very well, and I learned this pretty early in my career, is the ability to listen. Because when you ask questions and you say you do not know, you need to be able to press the pause and be able to listen to the answers. Because as you listen to the answers, you get to know what the work that needs to be done is. You get to know what is the most important objective that the company is actually following. You get to understand what the vision of them or the mission of that company is all about. And all of this is through listening. And listening is a key skill that I've seen in my career, even as I'm managing other people through my career, that people do not listen very well. I think there are a lot of times when we actually pretend to be listening, or we seem to be listening, but we're actually not actually hearing what is coming through our way. So listening becomes very critical. The fourth point is be confident in self. Because you did apply for the job and you've been given the opportunity, and you're showing up and you're giving 100%. You got to learn to be confident in self and believing in yourself. Because a lot of times when we start doubting ourselves and doubting our ability, that's when we start making the mistakes. That's when we start making mistakes and then we fail in our particular roles, whereas we could actually be using that time to be able to shine. And building that self, that confidence, is done in different different ways. It can be done within a group or within a project where you actually be, volunteer to be the one that will be leading a particular project. And and that shows self-confidence to those around you and those that are actually managing you. So confidence in self is a big step in making the most of your opportunity. And interacting with others is one thing that I learned in my journey as a way of being able to continue building your knowledge base, especially for the company that you will have joined or in the business that you actually will be running. Because as you interact with others, you get different points of view. And when you get different points of view and you ask questions, and you listen, you know that you are literally continuing to learn and to broaden your horizon. And also, when you interact with others, you also get to know of additional opportunities that might be there within the organization that you are in. Building a network of cheerleaders is one of the things that I think is a must do as you make the most of an opportunity. I think in the organizations that I've worked in, one of the things that used to happen is that there would be people development forums where, your line manager would go through and they go and have to talk about Noma. And as they talk about Noma, the one thing that you would want your network of cheerleaders to say is, oh yes, I do know about Noma. She's a very capable and results-driven young woman. And, she actually does her work very well. But if you don't build a network of cheerleaders, when your line manager then says, this is what Noma is capable of doing, the last thing that you want to happen in a discussion forum is for the people around the table to say, who is Noma and what does she do? Yet you work in the same organization. So building a network of cheerleaders becomes absolutely critical for you as you either climb, the corporate ladder, or as you make the most of your opportunity in the role that you're currently in, because your cheerleaders will be there to guide you, will be there to speak well about you when the opportunity does arise to other people. And as they speak about you to other people, other opportunities to be able to learn continue to come up within your role. And I'm sure you've heard that, in most of the things that I've talked about, learning has been one of the most important things that I've actually grasped from my career in corporate. And having being open to learning new things is one of the things that I realized that would make me be able to have a wider knowledge base about whatever company I worked in at any particular moment in time. And being open to learning new things is not about climbing the corporate ladder. It's not about being given a promotion. In some instances, it's about taking up a role in a different department, and which is what the lattice versus the ladder opportunity might be. So an opportunity might come up for somebody who is in finance to go and work in a sales role. And that opportunity, if it does come up and you feel it's something that you want to do, don't always think of the ladder, think of the lattice, and use your experience of what you might know from a finance perspective to be able to utilize that information or that knowledge in your role when you're working in, if you're going to be working in a sales job. Because what it then does is, at the end of it all, as you do your sales job, you now literally have two places where you where you actually are a subject matter expert, not only finance, but also sales. And then it makes you very well-rounded in terms of the work that you actually will be doing and the value that you'll be able to give to your organization. Mentorship is one of the things that is actually an important thing as you make the most of your opportunity. And having a mentor is is an important opportunity for you as you grow your knowledge base. And it is different from coaching, for example, because when you look at coaching is more about what your line manager would be. It's a process where your line manager would be developing you more for the role that you're in. Whereas when you're looking at mentoring, it is a supportive learning relationship. And it is a relationship that is between a caring individual who shares knowledge and experiences and wisdom with another individual who is ready and willing to benefit from this exchange. And this actually enriches your professional journey. So having a mentor within an organization and selecting a mentor who has got the right qualities is also important, because a lot of times when we then look for mentorship, we look for the people that are probably popular in an organization. And when we do that, sometimes that is where we don't make the most of our opportunity, because that particular mentor could turn out to be very busy and not have adequate time for you. So some of the key things for you to be able to look at when you're looking for a mentor is look for somebody who is consistent, who's a very good leader, and who can be a great cheerleader for you, and who can use his or her experience and share that with you to be able to broaden your knowledge base as you work within your organization and you make the most of your opportunity. And be open to feedback. A lot of times, the feedback that I've seen folks being open to is only good feedback, but take the opportunity to also be open to feedback that is bad. And when I say bad feedback, I don't mean that the feedback is bad, but it is bad in your ears because you're not ready to hear that you are not doing your job well. Use that opportunity to be able to ask the questions. Go back to number 2. When you've been given feedback that you are not doing something right, go back to number 2 and ask questions, because you do not know everything. What is it that I can do to be able to do this better? And because if you ask those questions, guess what? 9 out of 10 times, the person that who gives you that feedback will be very willing to share with you the areas of opportunity where you are actually not doing well, what you need to actually do to be able to do your job better, and you'll find yourself having continuous improvement. And finally, having a learning mindset. And I think this kind of anchors what I call Noma's 10 points of making the most of any opportunity whenever the opportunity comes knocking on your door. Having a learning mindset is you're continuously learning. Learning never stops. It doesn't matter whether you've been in an organization or in a role for 5 years or for 10 years. There's always something new that comes up. And I think Kudzai aptly summed it right at the beginning when he talked about the LinkedIn profile from session 1, that he thought that, what, I think I know everything, but he found himself taking notes. He wasn't the only one. I think I was in the same boat with Kudzai as well and taking a whole lot of notes. And I've learned that within my career, having a learning mindset and the ability to be able to ask questions because I interacting with others helped me to be able to make the most of any opportunity that I was given, but also it also helped my network of cheerleaders to be able to have something to talk about me in a very positive manner. And that is a very positive 10-point plan of making the most of any opportunity. There are a lot of ways for one to be able to make the most of any opportunity that comes your way. These are the normal ones that I have learned on my plus 20 years of my career journey. But as you make the most of the opportunity, guess what? There are also obstacles that you get to meet, that come your way. So, I just felt that at the end of the day, I could share with you, how the 10-point plan of how to make the most of an opportunity without sharing with you some of the obstacles and what I have learned over the years as the ways to overcome those particular obstacles. A lot of times when we're starting up in a new role, in a journey, or even when we're starting our own businesses, one of the biggest things that actually make us, or one of the obstacles that we generally tend to face comes from ourselves, and it is called fear. And this could be fear of speaking up. This could be fear that I might not be able to do my job right. Guess what? We are our own enemies because of fear. We've got to be able to learn to overcome our fears. And by using that 10-point plan, by learning to listen, by learning to ask questions when we do not know, it gives us the confidence to be able to overcome our fear, and we'll be able to speak up, and we'll be able to show up, and we'll be able to give more than 110% to the job that we're doing, and we'll be able to continue to make the most of our opportunity. The second obstacle that I thought I could share with you as participants is peers who don't want to share information. I think, in any work environment, not everybody wants to share. There are those people that will meet in the job space who, or in any organization, who will come through and they will say that, we don't want to share our information, and they hog all the information to themselves because they believe they're the only ones who need to be able to shine. And I actually believe that, whenever you encounter such an obstacle, don't be like your peers. Continue to be one of the people in the team that shares information. I think, to use the phrase, when they go low, you go high. You continue to actually rise above those who do not want to share their information, and be one of those employees that share with their peers information and share knowledge, because in sharing knowledge, everybody learns from each other, and you actually build a collaborative environment around you. For those that are probably already in the workspace, having a difficult boss is passing through in your way. I will continue to reflect the plan that I shared with you. And I don't believe in difficult bosses. Not because I've not come across them. I have come across difficult bosses. But one of and that my network of cheerleaders, my mentors taught me to do is how to deal with a difficult boss. And one of the things that you need to do is to ask questions. If it's difficult, you think that your boss is difficult, the question is, why do you think that your boss is difficult? Is it because they're telling you something that you're not doing right? You might find that a lot of times, put your hand up and saying, you know what, I don't know. Can you help me and explain to me and give me clarity on how to deal with this particular issue? Or if I'm right and there's something missing in that, what is missing? And you find that your boss stops being difficult, or your line manager stops being difficult, and they actually share with you how they want to have that report written. And guess what? You might end up being the example that your so-called boss will end up using in the team to show how somebody is actually he's able to share. So I don't believe in difficult bosses. I believe that, at the end of the day, everyone has got an interest in ensuring that the company succeeds and delivers on their objectives that they actually have. And the boss a lot of times will be under pressure to be able to deliver on particular objectives or particular results or targets, and they will then take them out on their team. Learn to ask questions on how to meet those particular targets. And if you feel that those targets are too high and they're too difficult for you to be able to achieve, speak to your boss and put your hand up and ask questions and then listen to the answer. You'll be surprised that, the difficult boss will end up not being a difficult boss. Fatigue in your role sometimes comes up and not moving up. And that's where the lattice versus the ladder, issue then, comes into play. Because as you get tired in your role, learn to speak up and ask to be moved to a different department, not necessarily as a promotion, but it could be for you to be able to go and gain a new skill set working in a different department. You will find that you're more energized when you move from a role that you've been doing for a number of years to a new role where you're learning new things. And that's where the learning mindset will continue coming in. And finally, it's okay to want to leave. Um, and there are different reasons that you might actually want to leave an organization. One of them could be that their value system is not in line with what your value system. One of them could be new opportunities come through that you want to be able to pursue. Nothing wrong with that. Because as part of our growth and as part of making the most of any opportunity that comes our way, part of it involves being able to move on to newer things that will end up energizing us in terms of the role that we'll be coming into, or even if it's something to do with the business that you want to run. So that kind of like is my 5-point obstacles and how to overcome the obstacles to ensure that go into the workspace or when you are in any particular career, you make the most of your opportunity, but you also learn to be able to overcome the obstacles that you face. So at the end of the day, I leave you all with my mantra, which I believe in, which is Carpe Diem, seize the day, boys and girls, make your lives extraordinary. I hope that, as we go through with this session and as we go through the Q&A, and I hope that, Kudzai and Kurudzira will continue more of these sessions. There will be something that you'll have learned, not only from my presentation, but from presentations from Rejoice and from Hard Life and from the LinkedIn profile that was talked about by Lorraine. And from learning from that, we can make the most of the opportunity that comes our way, and we can make career lives extraordinary. So thank you. I'm not too sure whether Kudzai is still
I'm here, Noma, I'm here.
there.
Yes.
Kudzai, okay, there we go.
All right, I'm here. I think like everyone else, I was captivated listening to your story and all the lessons that you received. And there was so much, I think, to take away there. So everyone, just for you to know, Norma is one of my biggest cheerleaders. So I also practice some of her points that she's talking about. So I always love how she can come and not only motivate and cheer me up, but also question a lot. And I think you need that in your groupings as well. People that are able to question and ask you and be able to tell you frankly if maybe you're not taking the right decision. So for that, I'm really grateful. Any questions that people might have for Noma to ask? I have one question, Noma. There was a time, I think early on in your career, you went and did a report that no one else wanted to do and the boss hadn't asked you to do, how did you handle your co-workers, or how did they react to you? Because a lot of times I find people do not stand up because they're so scared of what their co-workers will say or will call them, accuse them of sucking up. Did that ever occur or happen with you?
That's a great question, Kudzai. I remember when I did ask my colleagues to help out with the report. I think what I met with was resistance, and I realized that instead of trying to convince them, the best that I can do is take a lead. And in taking a lead, I made sure that I put together the report. And by taking a lead, all I asked them then to do is then do the work that you are supposed to do, i.e., give the input that you're supposed to give to the report. And I will then ensure that I consolidate it, which is what my line manager would have done anywhere who was away at that time. So yes, resistance comes in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, it depends on how you then decide that you're going to handle that resistance. You could join in and decide that if people are going to be resistant, therefore I'm not going to do it as well, and I will just do the bare minimum, i.e., do my job. Or you can rise above it all and take a lead, and that also leads to building confidence in self.
Oh, fantastic. Um, what about, because now you've left the corporate world, you're now doing your own business. How do the two compare, or the motivation? Is there a difference? Is the energy levels the same? Are you putting in as much effort? What would you advise people who are maybe looking at either corporate versus starting their own businesses?
I'm in year one of starting my own business right now, but just going back to what I shared with all the participants, one of the things that I encourage is have that network of cheerleaders who you are able to go to, ask questions, and ask them if the business plan that you've put together is sound, if there is something better or something missing in that particular business plan that you need to be able to include. But not only that, the network of cheerleaders will ensure that, let's take a business that you have to post online, for example. Your network of cheerleaders will come through because they've had input into your plan. They'll come through and they will give positive comments on whatever you will have posted online because you've built a strong network. So I find myself going back to the lessons that I've learned in corporate, and I apply them to my current business right now that I'm running, building a network of cheerleaders, listening, asking questions, having mentors, and it all comes together and helps me to continuously improve my business and see it succeed.
Okay, thank you, Noma. Any other questions that people might have for Noma? Please feel free to ask. Alan, you're quiet today. Do you have a question you want to ask?
Evening, sir.
Evening, Alan.
How are you? I've got a question for Norma. I wanted to ask you, what's your advice to a person who's getting to their first job, like a person who's going to the entry level, like what's their advice for them to sort of, handle themselves in order for them to achieve what she has achieved so far?
Hey, Alan. I'd say that I would use my experience of when I literally started my career journey. And the number one thing is I told myself that I have to be confident to be able to say that there's certain things that I do not know, and then learn to ask questions. And a lot of times you'll find that there are a lot of people within your department who will be very willing to be able to share information with you, and for you to then broaden your knowledge base. And then number two, learning to listen. And the art of listening becomes very important, because if you're going to ask questions, be able to listen to what the answer is going to be, because by listening, you'll be able to learn and be open to having a learning mindset. And as you start your career, always remember that, for example, your first job, you have applied for it. And because you've applied for it, show up and give the best. Don't sit there and say, oh no, now I've got this job, therefore I can now relax. Because that's when the hard graft starts. Because by a hard graft, I mean giving everything, from as little as coming to work on time. If it's a meeting that you have to dial in on, something as small as that, being able to dial in 10 minutes earlier and be prepared. So it's always the small things that will help you to be able to continuously learn and make the best of the opportunity whenever you are at it.
Okay, thanks. Wadzanai, hello, Wadzanai. I think you've been attending all the sessions, haven't you? So thank you for, and always actively involved as well too. Do you have a question for Noma?
Hi, Kudzai. I just want to say, well, number one, the chat is disabled. I normally like to type in stuff as we go along, but I couldn't do that today. And just to ask Noma, I mean, when I started working, I remember I would speak up, and challenge certain ethics or ethos in the organization. But I found that people at times felt offended, and I was given, so many labels. So, I mean, you might just want to give us some tips on how to, but without necessarily offending our fellow colleagues in the workplace.
That's actually a great point. And what I've learned over the years is the how. I think as individuals, we're either very forceful individuals, we're either extroverts or we're introverts. And the how, when you speak up, matters a lot. When you speak up in a demanding or dictatorial tone and demean what everybody around you is talking about, you'll find that a lot of times you get negative feedback from people. But when you speak respectfully, even if you are disagreeing with what is currently being said, you find that you have more listeners and more people who will take on your idea. So the tone matters. Just like when we talk about body language in any group setting, whether you are speaking up via a blue jeans meeting or like we're doing right now, your tone can be heard when you're being forceful or when you're being respectful. And when you're disagreeing respectfully. So it is something that you learn as you grow in your career. And guess what? One of the things that I've used to be able to do this is to sit and be able to record myself when I speak and listen to myself and how I sound, because by listening to how I sound, that is exactly how other people will be able to view me or will be able to view my tone of voice or my body language. And I've learned that over the years, even as I was preparing for this interview, for this presentation, that, how I speak is it engaging? Is it demeaning? Is it dictatorial? Is it something that makes people want to listen? It becomes a learning as you go along. So practice makes perfect at the end of the day. So never be scared to speak up, but how you speak up and the tone of voice that you use is absolutely important.
Okay, thank you, Noma. There's a question here. Any advice for nomadic characters who hop from job to job and never last long enough to grow?
Okay, so I always say that, at the end of the day, when a new opportunity comes up that you feel is important, is something that that you want to go for, I'd say go for it. But be wary of not building depth and always moving to the next new big thing. So what I used to say to my direct reports is that at the time, whether we're doing an exit interview or we're doing a developmental chat, is ask them if they wanted to leave to go to the next role. I'd sit down with them and go through their CV and start asking questions, because and maybe our life can jump in on this. Sometimes when you then looking at an applicant who every 6 months is always changing their job, one of the things that will pop up is why. Why are they always changing jobs? Could it be a new opportunity comes up every single year or every 6 months? Or they literally have got itchy feet and they do not stay in a role long enough to be able to stay, or they're actually not a reliable employee to be able to have. So I'd say that always try and make a bunch of jobs, not to say that you shouldn't, but just know that it might be perceived in a negative way by your next prospective employer if you've changed jobs, for example.
Okay, thanks, Noma. You mentioned mentorship. There's a question here from Courage. She's currently seeking employment, but there are few people that she believes she can really benefit from. That said, is it okay to have a mentor from an organization that you may not be a part of? Also, can a person have more than one mentor?
In my mentorship journey, Courage, found it beneficial to have a mentor within the organization that I'm in. But I also have found it beneficial to have a mentor who is not in the same organization that I'm in. Because remember, a mentor is somebody who's got great listening skills, who show empathy, and who's making time to be able to share their wisdom and their knowledge with you, the mentee. So they don't necessarily have to be from the same organization. They could actually come from different organization, and it would still be beneficial for you.
Okay, yeah. And maybe to add on to that, I found that, I need different mentors in my life. So one can be for career and business, but I also found then you need that same person might not be the best mentor for maybe your spiritual growth or for family or for lifestyle and fitness. So you could end up having 2 or 3 mentors that are serving you for different purposes as well, because we can't get one mentor who fits everything as well. Okay, another question. How do you deal with people who are intimidated by younger employees eager to learn? This is from Sharon.
Hi, Sharon. You're taking me back to a long time ago in my career. I think the time when I became the regional sales manager, and my peers suddenly were intimidated because they're much older, more experienced. The most thing to do in a scenario like that is being able to show the people that you're leading, if you are leading anyone, that you actually are the right person for the job. So being a line manager, for example, to more experienced people, and if you are younger than them, takes a lot of being humble. And we always say that, whenever you are a boss, you must lead with humility. Yeah. So yes, you could be a younger person who's leading older people, or you are the older people being led by a younger person. I think the most important thing is being open to having a learning mindset, because you can learn from those that are younger than you, and you can learn from those that are older than you. So keeping an open mindset tends to be very helpful rather than seeing change as a barrier. And you find that you you become less intimidated by the younger employees who might be eager to environment, and by asking them, and by asking the right questions there, and ensuring that you create an environment where everyone feels safe to be able to learn with their eagerness, without taming their eagerness as well, but ensuring that you engage them to continuously learn and improve themselves.
Okay, maybe talking about safety, Wadzanai talks about how in 2002, when she started working, sexual harassment was quite rife. Any guidance for younger employees who were starting out? It was quite rough back then, and professional growth was stifled for anyone who was not receptive to such gestures. Anything on that, Noma?
Okay, so I think I kind of like missed a bit of the question. So maybe let me read it because you are breaking.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
Okay, so this is more on sexual harassment. Is that right, Wadzanai? That I give that I gave to my members, and this is a few years ago, and I continue to give it I meet and some of the people that I mentor. Is that whereas in the 90s, for example, it was okay to be able to say towards an eye, the skirt that you're wearing is looking good on you. Today, it is a different work environment, because anything of that nature could be deemed to be sexual harassment, and it could be dismissible. We care about say that could be deemed to have any sexual innuendos when you make comments. So comments that were being made in the early 90s, today, in the corporate world today, you'd not be able to make those comments. And sometimes it is just even a look. So I speak not only to my male colleagues, but I speak to my female colleagues as well, and give them the environment that treat everyone with respect, because anything that is deemed to be sexual harassment is a dismissible offense. And I think a lot of organizations right now are training all their employees on the right way to behave within an organization that makes people comfortable without anything being deemed as sexual harassment. And it's a challenge for older people, but for the generation, it is much easier. So my advice is, if the organization is not teaching you that, continuously learn from other people and listen to them, because we are living in a different space where somebody might deem something that you think is innocent, they might deem to be sexual or dismissible of. So it is something to be very wary of.
Okay, thanks. Lorraine, I don't know if you can now share your comment and question that you had.
Thanks, Kudzai. Thank you, Noma, so much for the presentation. It was very enlightening. What stood out for me was how your mindset was always right in terms of how you approached your work and your job. And I think that's one of the key things that you always have in mind, is to keep a positive outlook when it comes to your job career. When I was on the job market, or when I was working, I would always tell myself that, yes, they may say jobs as it's hard to find a job, but I always told myself that it's hard for other people, but it will not be difficult for me. And that is what helped me to change companies, was the network that I kept that would tell me when there were opportunities that were there. So I knew it was a matter of time before somebody came and gave me an opportunity like that. So always keep a positive mindset. And that is what stood out for me. Now, my question to you, Noma, you're working for yourself. I find that at times as entrepreneurs, we focus on business and not our career. How are you tackling that?
That's a great point, Laura. Thank you for that feedback as well. For me, it is a learning journey. And like Kudzai is one of my network of cheerleaders, by the way. So because it's a learning journey, there are people that I go and ask for help. So that's one of the ways that I actually tackle this as an entrepreneur. So I'll go to people who are subject matter experts in particular things. So let's take the digital space, and I want to post something about my business in the digital space. I know that I've got friends who are actually very good at doing that, and that's part of my network of cheerleaders. So I go to them and I ask them to look at the stuff that I'm going to post. And a lot of times, they get to volunteer and say, before you post anything, send it to me. I will sense check it for you, and then you can post it when everything is right. And I find that having that learning mindset continuously helps me to be able to improve within my. So I still use some of the aspects of what I used to use within the corporate life, within the business space as well, and asking questions, because I'm new in this journey of entrepreneurship, and who are experts in their fields. It's something that I've found to be very beneficial to me as well.
Okay, thanks, Noma. There's a question here. Earlier on, you spoke about how when you were the boss and people wanted to leave, you'd sit down with them and talk to them. How do you handle a situation where the boss is not so receptive, in a way that I think the intention would be to make that separation process as smooth as possible to maintain good relationships? What would your advice be where someone is a boss who's resistant to people leaving or wants you to leave on his terms or her terms?
Okay, so I've just seen the question from Patience.
Okay.
Patience. One of the things what I would do as a manager is be able to sit down with my direct report and find out why they want to leave. Because in finding out why they want to leave, it will make me be able to understand how to manage the remainder of the people that I'm actually leading. Because they could be wanting to leave because, for example, the experience within the organization is not right for them. If I don't ask those questions, they will leave and will never get that information back. They could be leaving because they value system, that information so you can continuously improve your organization. But when if boss who is viewing for you to leave, that is a different scenario, because at the end of the day, it's not your boss to accept you leaving. it is you who wants to leave, and as much as they might actually say no, at the end of the day, you've got you why you want to leave. And even if they're resisting, your mind is no longer there anymore. And HR will be very helpful if you are tendering your resignation and they are refusing to take it, because there are always avenues within the workspace that will allow you to be able to find a way to live in a good way, even if your boss does not want you to leave. Because one of the reasons, to be quite honest, Patience, why your boss might not want you to leave is because they believe that you are doing your job so well and nobody else can, which is kind of like a selfish way of looking at things instead of letting someone fly and explore new opportunities. But I find when the one woman is not working, HR is there to be able to leave early. Okay, whether Kudzai is still there.
I'm still there. Did you see the question from Wadzanai? I'm just trying to find it. She asked it twice, actually. I'm just trying to see if I can pick up.
I missed it. The one about
workmates that have been there for a long time and not receptive to new ideas.
Okay, so that is always the tough one. And my advice would be that the there for a long time and are not receptive to new ideas do not necessarily have to become a network of cheerleaders, because at some stage, you can't continuously knock at a door and somebody is not opening it, and then you want them to then become a network of cheerleaders. Look for those that are receptive to your ideas and get them to be in your network of cheerleaders, not the ones that are not receptive. At the end of the day, not 100% get along with everybody. And I'd say that your time and your energy to be able to connect to those that you'll be receptive to. Because what tends to happen is by continuously connecting with those that are going to be either receptive to ideas or to new ideas and making them your network of cheerleaders, those that are not receptive will start asking themselves questions as to why they are not within your network of cheerleaders. And within what I've learned over time is by not being harsh to them, but by other people and using those other people to, receptive to new ideas, to my network of cheerleaders. Those who are not receptive start coming in. And when they do come in, guess what? I will not remind them that they were not receptive in the first place. I will embrace that change and be able to take them through what my ideas are, because eventually they might end up being in my network of new leaders, of cheerleaders.
Okay. Noma, on the part of asking questions and confidence, is there an acceptable level of being inquisitive within a corporate setup that doesn't put off the boss?
I think at the end of the day, what I've learned is the how. What I've learned is asking with we call it leading with humbleness, and I'm also calling it asking questions with humbleness and confidence. And you'll find when you do contact, the boss will not be put. So times when you are receiving many questions one after another, as if you are not listening. So I think take time to to be very clear, to have clarity in terms of the questions that you ask, but also take a pause and then be able to listen. Because when you listen, you're giving the boss the opportunity to be able to answer your question. And I found that that tends to work pretty well. It sounds like it's simple, but a lot of times young, eager employees in a corporate environment tend to want to be always asking so many questions, but never taking time to listen. And sometimes the questions therefore become repetitive, that the boss will see that the person is actually listening.
Okay, what if the boss refuses to give you a reference? Can you get that from another employee or a colleague? And how do you explain that to your prospective employer?
I don't know whether Headlife on the call today, maybe you can help with this one here, but what I've used in my career is I have not necessarily used my direct line manager as my reference because I've got a network of cheerleaders. It could be somebody more senior to me who works in a different department who I would use as a reference and not necessarily my boss. But in scenarios where I would have to use my boss, I found that my boss was receptive. But if they were not, I would use somebody else which was in a different department.
Yes, I think that's in line with what Life mentioned last time, because your boss will not always give you the reference, so you might then need to use someone else, but someone who's maybe knows your work or has supervised you before or is a character reference, so it doesn't always have to be your immediate boss. And maybe the last question, Noma, is it advisable to do your postgraduate soon after undergraduate studies? This is from Alan.
I'll share with you what my experience has been. I found that as I was doing my MBA, and I started my MBA about 13, I found that I was more the industry when we would have our sessions because I had practical examples of being in the workplace that I could use whenever we had our sessions and we had assignments that we had to use. A lot of it was also practical based on my work experience. So I found that a few years of work gave me that. But I think it works differently for people. This respect experience is always beneficial for being a postgrad, at least how far when I was doing my MBA.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Noma. I think we will end it there. We are now, 1.5 hours in. We'd said we'd give away some freebies today. The first one would be the book that Noma has donated. Noma, how does this work? You're in Harare. What happens if we want to give the book to someone who's not in Harare, who's in South Africa or something?
I think we can always find a way of, I don't know whether they can hear me. We can always find a way of the book. I mean, all we would need is to have the that's them, so it's not a problem.
Okay, so in that case, the book, we're going to give it to Sharon because Sharon was like the first person. Okay, there were 3 people that wrote on my LinkedIn page: Alan, Nolitando, Sharon. They were all claiming the book, that I'm going to get this book. I know Alan was the first one to write that story. But Sharon logged in like at 5:30, I think, and I thought she was the hungrier of everyone who had wanted that book to get it. So Sharon, we're going to give the book to you. If you can maybe just send a message privately to me or Noma, a chat, and then we'll see how to get the book to you. So congratulations for getting that book. And then we'd say,
congratulations, Sharon.
And then we were offering everyone else I think the idea was to have your LinkedIn profiles looked at, to have your CV looked at, or to be assisted in preparing for interviews. What I like, I think everyone was here, there may be 20 or less of us. So I think you can then just choose what you would like to get help with. I'll leave the chat open after the meeting. Also, now you can even just start typing. Just say what it is that you want help with, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, whether it's your CV, or whether it's with interviews. And then I'll link you up with the guys to help you with whatever you need help with there. So just let me know in the chat box what it is you want help with, and then we'll make sure that you